But I'm really excited to be here with you to begin the session 2020. And you know what? I think we have so much to look forward to, because in case you all don't remember, I think it's important for me to remind you that you really kicked the skin off of it last legislative session. So I want to just no pressure, right? But we're expecting to have a legislative session that is at least as good as the one we left in 2019.
Okay.
Just to remind you all, we came and we set some very ambitious goals. We reminded ourselves, first of all, that we are Team Prince George's County and that we're so proud of that. But I want to remind you as well that we made history together last year, that you all brought home the largest single sum of state aid to Prince George's County than ever in the history of Prince George's County. So I want to remind you. Now, I know as well that all of us are excited and anxious because we have really, this year, it is another history-making year, and we have the opportunity to make history for our children. And I know that all of us are up for that. That we started by laying some groundwork together last year, and so really this is not new. The task that we have ahead of us is not a new one. We last year, for example, made sure that we made the construction of new schools in Prince George's County, that we decided that we would have our kids in 21st century school buildings that were befitting of their dignity, and that we would be aggressive and be a leader in this regard. The P3 structure that you all passed in the state legislature last year sets us apart as the only jurisdiction in the country to have done this. So we'll be the first in the nation to begin this P3 process. And we're hearing from jurisdictions around Maryland who are interested already in how we will build 18 schools in the next 7 years using this very innovative model that will not only be quicker but save us money and will address the needs that we have for our kids. And so P3 is back on the agenda this year. You all really pushed to make sure we didn't leave that session without getting that structure in place. And this year we're looking forward to adding the funding and making the very important statement to all of our children about what we believe they are worth. That they should be in buildings without mold, that should not be cold in the winter and too hot when it gets warm outside, that they should have the technology that they deserve. And what I'm really excited about in these P3 schools is you should know that at least one of the 18 schools that we have set aside will be for career and technical education and entrepreneurship. And so I'm really excited that we're going to do that. Well, you should know the conversation came up and it was said, you know what, County Executive, why don't we just remodel, renovate one of the schools that we have and set that aside for career and technical education? I want you to know I said unequivocally, absolutely not. The school that we build for career and technical education will also send the signal to our kids that it is not because you can't go to college, but it's because you choose not to. That's right. And some of our kids are talented enough. They want to have a path to excellence and a path to earn their way into the middle class, whether they choose to go to college or not. So building a new school from the ground up, complete with all the technology that will be necessary to prepare them for the trades, entrepreneurship, and the other areas that they will select, will send the message to them that this is a really a forward-looking way to go into the future, and that we want to provide them every tool to be successful. And so I'm excited about the P3. I want you all to please keep that as well on your legislative agenda as a priority to be able to begin to move that forward. Now, it was not just that we were able to focus on school construction, which I know again will be a big issue this year, but the word Kerwin. Let's talk about Kerwin. Let's talk about Kerwin. We're going to talk about the other legislative agendas as well, but we had an opportunity, again, of a lifetime to address an equity gap that didn't just start. Part of what's frustrating to me, to be honest with you, about Kerwin is this, to me, it's a no-brainer. Whether or not we agree together about Kerwin and the policy of Kerwin, really, this is a conversation that's been a generations-long conversation. It's been a generations-long conversation. It's been going on for decades about how we close the equity gap in education in this country. Last year in the Washington Post, if you want to look back on it, February 26th of 2019, the Washington Post published an article. The article talked about a $23 billion gap between minority communities and others, and that there was a $23 billion education funding gap in our country. And again, this is not a new gap. It didn't grow overnight. It grew over generations. We have been talking about addressing this equity gap. We did it with Thornton back in 2007 when we passed it, but we didn't have the funding yet. So we've been talking about the equity gap, and we finally have an opportunity this year to fund our priorities, to really make the statement through our funding that says that the quality of education that our kids deserve, which by the way, it is, I think Section 8 of the state constitution talks about the fact that this is the first priority of state government, is to fund an equal and equitable education for all of Maryland's children. And that means most especially the children in Prince George's County. It means that we're talking about Black, brown, impoverished, and disadvantaged youth. What do we do about those children who are disproportionately in Prince George's County? Prince George's County educates for, let me make this clear, for the state of Maryland. These are not just Prince George's County's kids, these are Maryland's children. And Prince George's County educates for the state of Maryland. The largest number of disabled students in the state, the largest number of students who speak English as a second language, and 62% of our kids on free and reduced lunch. So the disadvantaged and impoverished youth that we're talking about, guess where they live? They live in Prince George's County. And what that means is that not only does the county have an obligation to provide an equal and equitable education to those kids, but the state, as its first responsibility, ought to provide the funding for us to educate those children. Now let's talk about how Prince George's County has shown up. Because again, I am solidly in support of Kirwan. And in fact, it's so foregone, I believe, you know what, it's a little controversial to say, but this is a decades-long problem that is a little frustrating for all of us. But what I will say about Kirwan and the funding of Kirwan is this is the issue that's on the table. It's not whether or not to do Kirwan. It's a little insulting to ask somebody whether they support Kirwan. I think you'll be hard pressed to find a single person who you meet who is not in support of Kirwan. The question is, how do we fund Kirwan in a way that is equitable, in a way that is long-term, and is responsible? That's the question. And let me just tell you about Prince George's County and how we show up in this. Be clear about it as we go out. You should know that Prince George's County has met and exceeded its obligation to fund education. And we didn't just start last year, but we have done so over at least the last decade, when we have exceeded maintenance of effort every single year for the last 9 years. And the reason that I say this is because this is not widely known. There's a perception out there that Prince George's County hasn't paid its fair share. Nothing could be further from the truth. We paid $137 million above maintenance of effort over the last 9 years. Prince George's County has gone above maintenance of effort every year, including in this last budget when we went $18.8 million above maintenance of effort. I want to thank the council, Councilmember Ivy is here. I want to thank all of you. We went above. And so I want you to know that Prince George's County has shown up. This is a priority for us, and we don't just say it is. It's a priority because of every dollar we take into our county, 62% of it goes to education. 62% of every dollar that comes into Prince George's County goes to education. That means that we value education. You should also know that as we talk about how to fund it, so that's important. And I can just put a punctuation mark there because I heard somebody came to me and said, well, the reason that the formula came out the way it did was because Prince George's County is with the jurisdictions who have not paid above maintenance of effort. That you all, like some other jurisdictions, haven't paid above maintenance of effort. That's the reason your share is so high. Not true. Again, $137 million over the last 9 years, we have paid above maintenance of effort. The other thing that you should know is that our residents are the most highly taxed residents in the state of Maryland. We're #1 in income tax. Prince Georgians pay the highest tax rate in the state, #1. We're #2 in the property tax rate. So Prince Georgians, so when we start talking about where do we find the funding, be clear that we're going to do everything we can. We're going to pay our share as we always have. But the thing that we are not going to do is to do it on the backs of our citizens. And I know that you all agree with me when we say that we are not going to do it on the backs of our citizens who already pay the highest tax rate in the state of Maryland. What that means is we expect the state to come up, to do their part too. This means that we all have to do our part. The county will do its part, but again, the highest income taxes, the highest property taxes in the state of Maryland. And what we've said to our citizens, and maybe you all are having these conversations too, when we start thinking about how to get it done, you know, our citizens feel like we've sent them on a scavenger hunt. Where's the money? That's the question we've been asked. Where's the money for our kids' education? When they feel like we told them for a moment that it was somewhere at the casino table. We said, well, maybe it was slots that would pay for it. Then we said it was in the lockbox. Some of them have said, well, we think y'all lied to us. If you told us that all of this problem will be solved just by gambling, what is it that you come back to me now and say you need somehow for us to do more? So the point of the matter is we have to find a solution. I know that we can trust all of the numbers people to do it. When we meet with the delegation on Friday, we're going to make some suggestions. We're going to bring our budget staff. We have some suggestions about the ways that we think we can get to the formula, that we can help make it more equitable, and how we can fund it. So we're going to bring those people with us Friday when we have a conversation and a chance to talk about it. But it's just important to me to convey to you that we're going to do our part, but we don't want anybody to say that Prince George's A, does not value education, and 2, that we have not done our part, because those things are not true. But we also want, once and for all, when we walk away from this session, I know that we're going to be very proud of the work that we do together when we make history, and not only talk about the equity gap, but when we walk away as one of the states in this country that can actually say we did something about it. That's how we will walk away together after this legislative session and say that we are the group, you all are the group of people who will walk away and say that Maryland really does value education, and we put the money there to prove it. Now, in addition to what we'll do on Kerwin, is we're also going to continue to make the strides that we have in some other areas. In elder abuse registry, you're going to see Maryland is one of the few states that does not have an elder abuse registry, which means our elders are going into these facilities after having been physically abused without a record, so we want the registry to go forward. There's a pilot that is going to be very important as well that we'd like to look at, modeled loosely after what's happening in Baltimore City and some of the surrounding jurisdictions, that will allow us in economic development to extend on long-term projects where necessary, the pilot, to when the project is come to us in phases. We want to be able to meet the second and third phase of some of those projects with the pilot. We currently have, I think, a cap of about 15 years. We look at Baltimore City and some of the surrounding jurisdictions, they have greater tools in their toolbox because they can go up to 25 years. So that's something that we would like for you to look at, to allow us to have greater tools as we have these projects that are coming online, and we want to be able to attract private investment. So that's one of the other areas. And you're going to see that we're going to also add to what we started last year with beautification, the county's beautification project last year. We've heard great reviews from that with the litter collection, but we want to support the bag tax to make sure that we're also focusing on the environment. So this is going to be really important to us. I had a chance to join the litter crews who went and picked up litter, and I have to tell you that it really does, when you go out there and you actually pick up all those plastic bags along the road, you begin to really kind of see in living color what it means. So we want to be able to add some teeth to that as well. Do you all have any questions before you leave or anything? Because I know you have to go, many of you, that's the reason we wanted to start.
We appreciate you.
Yes. We have the Black Caucus Conference at 10.
And we will ask you questions on Friday.
On Friday, okay.
Friday, I got a whole list for you.
We look forward to answering the questions for those who have to go on Friday. But again, I want to thank you all ahead of time. I'm sorry that hopefully some of you can have breakfast also before some of the ones who can stay behind, but thank you.
Can you give us those numbers regarding being the number one, the highest tax? That we pay the highest tax?
I'm going to give you one other
and all
number
of
before
that.
you walk out the door. There's something called local education effort. I want you to take a look. We'll do this Friday, the local education effort, where Prince George's County is. We're going to give you numbers on Friday. That will be great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
If I may.
Yes.
If I may.
So Delegate Jackson has
Excuse me, so I've been fighting a little bit of laryngitis, but I wanted to say this. It's just a quick reminder, I'm looking forward to Friday. I've enjoyed being the partner to the county as the delegation chair over the last year, as many of us were new in our positions of leadership, including the county executive and me as chair of the delegation, and many of us in the roles that we play here in the county. So we have a lot of work to do, but the one thing that I would like to stress, I love to say this because this is the only thing I know, it's about mutually beneficial partnerships. And we're all looking at the same thing, and we're all committed to ensuring that we get to that goal. And that comes from everybody has input, everyone has a sphere of influence. And our job here in Annapolis is to make sure that we utilize that. Our 23 members, second largest delegation in the state. And we are the Democratic, first of all, I love to say that as well. We are the Democratic bastion of the state. I don't care what anybody else says. So we have a sphere of influence. So our relationship with the executive's office, the county council, and our colleagues here in Annapolis, we're going to make sure that we do not deprive our young people of their future. It's about marketability. Whatever you deem as your success is what we want to help them get to. So each one of those individuals. So along with all of our partners, we're looking forward to this new challenge we have this year, which is always a great thing because we have a dynamic team. Check out where we are. I think the last official assignment document came out. I can't say, I'm not the leader of the House, but we are strategically placed and continue to be throughout the Senate and the House. We have folks that are in place, and the education committees in both chambers, we lead both of those. And so we're looking forward to working with you as we go forward. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we are, and I know we're great. So if there are any other questions from anybody, but we do look forward to all of us working together toward our common goal. And we also have, we want to welcome our Senate Chair, Senator Joanne C. Benson. Thank you so much for coming. We're looking forward, and we've been talking, Senator Benson, about education. So I know this is top of mind for you as well, and how we close that equity gap once and for all this year, that we stop talking about it and bring the money to the table. That's the question, of where is the money that our children deserve? That's the ongoing question. We're gonna solve that riddle this year, because where's our kids' money? That's the question. We're gonna solve the riddle together this year, especially some of the numbers. And what you just said is the thing that is the real issue, is we gotta make sure Prince George's County is not left behind. That is critically important. You talked about per pupil spending, and we'll talk more in the detail on Friday, but I want to tell you something. First of all, in the state of Maryland, Prince George's County is pretty high. We're very close to Montgomery County, for example. There's something called local education effort that I want to point you all to, and Teresa's shaking her head because she knows about this. They have a formula that talks about local education effort. Local education effort is how much we spend on education divided by our wealth. This is a formula that's put together by DLS, the Department of Legislative Services. This formula that they came out with, for example, our rate is 1.41%. Baltimore County's, for example, is 1.39. Montgomery County's is 1.44% local education effort. How much the county spends divided by wealth on its students. Now, in spite of Prince George's County having basically equal education effort or greater, for example, than Baltimore County and Montgomery County, when they talked about how much we have to pay to get the same education they're offering in Montgomery County and Baltimore County, guess how much it is? Prince George's County share is $1.5 billion. Baltimore County's is $130 million. And Montgomery County's share is $500 million. So what we're saying is we're gonna pay, but we wanna make sure that when the books close, that we are not treated in a way that is not equitable. We're gonna pay our share, but we want it to be a fair share. If we pay more in local education effort than another jurisdiction, but we're paying $1.5 billion and they pay $130 million, their payment comes due 2029, ours comes due 2022. We just wanna ask these questions. Is there a way, and everybody's already, I've met with several people who already recognize we gotta go back to the drawing board on the numbers and make sure that when it's done, that we honor our fiduciary duty to make sure that we not only are governing for kids, we're governing for their grandparents, we gotta govern for their parents and make sure that the whole family can live. That we have to do what is holistic. So again, when it's all done and said, the state has a great obligation. I mean, a great obligation to this. And we want to make sure that all of it's equitable. So we'll talk more about those numbers on Friday, but this is what we are looking at, is making sure that we pass it and that we do so in a way, again, that is equitable, long-term, and that is also sustainable and is responsible. So thank you all so much. Have breakfast, please, and we can continue to talk.